It's almost noon here in Ventnor City, New Jersey, and in North Carolina. And this is CarEdge Live for Tuesday, September 10th, with your host, me, Ray. And well, that's not Zach. That's Zach's brother from a different mother, Brandon from Car Question. You're not? Okay. Well, it's still Brandon.
I don't think it works that way.
Well, okay. Well, you're like brothers. You can be his older brother.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for having me here. I really appreciate it. This is always fun to do. We got a few things that we're going to talk about today. The big thing, the headliner. This is what we get right into it. Asbury denies FTC allegations, outlines internal processes in new filing. So the story behind this was that Asbury was accused from the FTC of really doing some discrimination throughout their actual dealership, and they were what looked like charging blacks and Latinos more than what they were charging white consumers, which is a big no-no. I own a small business. I know that's the one thing that we're definitely not even able to touch, because that can get us in a whole lot of trouble. And this is what they're being accused of. And what it is a lot of payment packing. And if I can, let me see if I can explain what payment packing is, and then you tell me where I'm wrong. So okay. Payment packing is where a consumer comes in. They say, I can afford a payment of $500 for this car. And really, the dealership is able to crunch the numbers or whatever and say, okay, this consumer can come in and actually have a payment of $425. So what they do is they fill up that monthly payment with extra products, stuff through F&I, things that are very high margin, maybe even predatory, to get that payment up to what that customer said that they can afford, even though they don't necessarily have to.
That's part of it. And the other part of payment packing is the customer hasn't even said what type of payment they're interested in, but the salesperson will present them with payments. And you might see a worksheet that says, with $5,000 down, your payments $750 a month for 72 months, $700 a month for 84 months, something along those lines. When in actuality, those payments might be $30, $40, $50 higher than what they really are. And so that's a form of payment packing as well. Now, you might ask the question, well, why would a dealership do that? Well, Asbury's take on this is, if that happens at our dealerships, and the dealerships we're talking about, they were 3 David McDavid dealerships in Texas. David McDavid Ford, I think David McDavid Honda, and I forget what the third one was. But there was
2 Honda dealerships and 1 Ford.
And there was one common denominator in, I think, all 3 of the stores, and that is a gentleman who had been the general manager at all 3 of the stores when these alleged activities occurred. And according to Asbury, if a customer is quoted a payment that's actually higher than it would be or should be, that suddenly they're happy when they get into the finance office and the finance person says, oh, by the way, that $750 payment is really only $725. So it's this concept of, under promising and over delivering. And in reality, the whole thing was set up to be able to make the customer feel like they were getting some type of bargain when they got into the finance office. And as you said, finance managers oftentimes add things, whether it be adding to the buy rate, adding a higher interest rate, adding protection packages, service contracts, things of that nature, without the people really fully understanding it.
Yeah, and they're saying that exactly right here. The FTC on August 16th alleged that Asbury included add-ons such as finance, insurance products, without the customer actually knowing what they were paying for. That's, I mean, that's a big problem, right? I mean, the customer, when they're coming in, if this feels a lot like, I know years and years and years ago we had the situation with like Wells Fargo with their employees getting in trouble with selling consumer stuff that they didn't even know that they were getting, because there's, I call them sales staff, they're telling whatever the people that were selling them, was they were really pushed into selling these products, and it became that it made them being put into a predatory position where, okay, their jobs were on the line. They needed to make these sales to make themselves look better, to make more money, whatever they were getting off of it. And in this case of these sales associates in this dealerships, it affected, I mean, their commissions, and they were making more money for selling these products.
One of the things you have to understand is that finance people, oftentimes they get a salary and a base commission, and then they get their commission structure can go up. Let's say they get a salary and 12% of whatever they produce in finance as far as profits concerned. And that 12% might then go to 14% if they have 60% penetration sales on extended warranties. And then it might go to 15 or 16% if they have 70% penetration on maintenance plans or low jack or whatever it is. But there's all these products that they get to sell that, based on the percentage of opportunities they had, if they hit a certain percentage of sales, it increases their commission base. And so people figure out how to work their pay plan. And if your pay plan is that you earn more because more people bought an extended service contract, or more people bought low jack, or more people bought dent and ding repair, guess what's going to happen? Your finance people are going to figure out how to add that to deals and to the finance contracts, and sometimes without the customer actually knowing. Because I believe there was an example where a woman said there was like $4,700 worth of stuff that she had no idea and that she didn't want, but that they had just included it. And one of the ways you do that, especially with electronic signatures today, where you don't really get to read everything, you're not handed a paper contract to read. The finance manager can kind of just gloss over it a little bit, and you might not fully understand 100% what it is that you're signing. And that's how stuff like this happens.
Yeah, and this is exactly what you were just talking about, where she was charged $3,000 for a service contract and over $4,700 for a life insurance policy, a disability insurance policy, a maintenance plan, and a service contract, and she was unaware of any of the stuff. So there are other instances where, other customers reported that they specifically declined these add-ons, only to find that they were changed after the fact and they were added on to what they were actually paying for. That's a big time note. Like salespeople should get fired over the stuff. And it seems like, from what the FTC is saying, is that it was almost encouraged for this kind of behavior at this dealership.
And like I say, the common denominator was there was the same general manager that worked in each one of these dealerships that overran the dealership. And now, that's not to say I don't know this. It's strictly my opinion. But, general managers pretty much have free reign over a dealership and how they operate. Now, they can be told from a corporate higher up, this is how we want you to operate. But if the corporate higher up isn't checking how everything's being done, and they just look at the numbers every month and they go, oh, he's a hell of a GM. I mean, the profits of this store have never been higher. Suddenly the corporate higher up goes, I kind of like the profits. I might not necessarily like how he's getting all those problems, but I'm not going to look into it to any great degree. And I can tell you from having spent 43 years in the industry that a salesperson can set the salesperson and the sales manager can set the deal up with a payment and everything that's included. And then the customer goes into the finance person's office. Doors are closed. It becomes, a private conversation in there. And the staff no longer knows exactly everything that's being said and how it's being said and how it's being presented. And I can't tell you the number of times where we would have a customer go, we fought for an hour and a half to get them to like a $475 a month payment because they weren't going to pay a penny more than $475. And after they come out of the finance office, they come out with a payment of $625. They bought an extended maintenance plan. They bought a service contract. And it's like, how did that happen? How did you push that person $150 a month on payments? And, sometimes it wasn't fully disclosed is how it happens. And that, I mean, listen, I've worked with finance people that we had to fire because they were pulling crap like that. It happens every day at probably every dealership, and it's unfortunate.
So where does the blame lie? I mean, you've been in dealerships for 40 years. You've managed people. Does it depend on how many cases there are? Is there a way that you can pick out one bad egg that's in F&I? How do you find the problem? Is it top down? And what do you do when you find the problem within a dealership like this?
If you have a finance manager that consistently is averaging $1,800, $2,500 profit in the back end, and that 75% of his or her customers are buying an extended service contract, all of a sudden you have to say, how's he getting this done? How's he or she getting this done? And it gets done. The deals get in and out of that office so quickly that you have to know that if there's somebody consistently doing $500 to $1,000 better per deal than the other F&I people, that person is not fully disclosing everything. I don't know if it's a hand going over a portion of the contract that they don't want you to see when they ask you to sign it. I don't know if they're just closing you on the payment and not really sharing with you everything that went into that payment or the cost of everything that went into that payment. And you have to, at a dealership level, have some type of internal auditor who's going to look at these deals. He's going to search for the signatures. He's going to do some forensic accounting to try and figure out how this always happens. And when you discover the tactics that are being used, I mean, there was an F&I guy I had one time. He would take cash deposits from people. We talked about cash deposit, and he would take cash deposits from people, and he'd give them a receipt on the back of his business card. Well, the store never saw the money. Okay.
How long did that take to find out? Could have been long.
About a week.
Yeah.
About a week. And then that guy was gone. But it's just, it's hard, but it's easy. You know from doing it for any length of time that if one person's performance is so much above everybody else's performance that they're lying, cheating, and stealing to get it done. It's just that simple.
So I want to ask you a little bit about about negative equity, and we're talking about payment packing. Is there any situation where negative equity and being able to pull, because this is a massive problem that we're dealing with right now.
Yeah.
Is there any situation where payment packing can go the wrong way with a customer that has to pay off some negative equity? Is there any, I don't know if there's any situation where dealerships add on extra money to try to take care of some of that negative equity.
Well, sometimes dealerships will add on extra money and say that there's a rebate, and that the rebate is a store rebate, and the rebate's coming from the proceeds from the bank and not really from the dealership or the customer. And if I may, speaking of negative equity, if I could just take a moment, go to caredge.com/negative, and please fill out our survey about negative equity. One lucky person could win $100 Amazon gift card, or one lucky person will, for having participated in the surveys. And God knows that $100 Amazon gift card will go a long way to satisfying your, no, I guess it probably wouldn't, to satisfying your negative equity, but the possibility exists that you can have $100 more to spend than you did before. Typically, I will share with you one of the things that happens. That, the reason this happens to people is and I'm going to say this, and I hope nobody gets mad at me. What the FTC alleged about blacks paying more or Latinos paying more, it has nothing to do with skin color. It has everything to do with knowledge before the people get in there. Okay? If they have no real understanding as to how the process works, if they're an easy mark, doesn't matter what color they are, the F&I person's going to take advantage of them. The salesperson's going to take advantage of them. There's this old saying that I don't know if you've ever heard me say it, but those who can afford to pay the most pay the least. And those who can afford to pay the least pay the most. And the reason for that is knowledge. Those who pay the least, who could actually afford to pay the most, have a better understanding as to how the process works. And because they know that process, they don't fall prey to it. And those who don't know it are the ones that get taken advantage of. And oftentimes, an F&I manager will have somebody that has a little spotty credit, doesn't really know how the process goes. They come in on a payment, and then the finance person can pack on another $5,000 worth of stuff, pick up another $3,000 worth of profit, and the finance person's job at that point becomes convincing the bank to approve the loan, because it's typically for more money than it should be. And that's what the finance person really has to do, is convince the bank to allow them to sell all the product that they sold.
So in your opinion, where does a person start? So somebody who's, let's say, a very young person, early 20s, never bought a car in their life. Now they're going to, okay, they're being fed to the sharks, basically going to one of these franchise dealerships. What do you feel like is a starting point? Somebody that's in that position that's watching us right now, what kind of advice would you give them where to go to? Just even if you go into a dealership, I feel like, and even just sound like you know what you're talking about, that is going to pull down the likelihood of you getting taken advantage of. I feel like 50%, just because they're going to feel like they just can't take advantage of you because you know what you're looking at.
Well, if you speak their language, then they're going to think you understand their language. And I mean, where do you start? You could start at CarEdge. I mean, we provide all kinds of free resources that are educational. We have Deal School that's educational, and it's free. And we're not the only YouTuber out there that is trying to educate American consumers. And we're not the only website out there that's trying to provide information. But where it really should start is it should start in high schools. And we have said to educational institutions, you can have our stuff if you want to teach it to the kids so that they don't get screwed the first time they go out and buy a car. We don't spend a lot of time educating people in this country about what it looks like to utilize credit and to buy expensive items. I remember the first time I bought a house, I had no idea what the hell I was doing. Nobody sat me down and said, okay, this is what you need to know. And so it should start in high schools. And then anybody that is a first time buyer, talk to somebody that's bought a number of cars, search the internet to find out how to buy a car. There's enough guides out there. There's enough resources out there that if you don't want to get taken advantage of, you can avail yourself of. I mean, even you help people all the time. How do you
even me as a used car dealer. Yeah. So I wanted to bring this up. Jim says, should we just be avoiding the sharks? And when we talk about the dealerships, and what I would say to that is the advice I always give is, don't go buy a car from a car dealer. One, buy a car that you can actually afford.
Yes.
I would rather you never take on car debt. Go buy a car that you can pay cash for. You own it, and whatever. You're going to avoid all those monthly payments that are crazy right now. But two, don't buy a car from I'm a used car dealer. Don't buy a car from me. I don't know where these cars come from. I buy them from auction. I don't know how they were maintained before I get them. Every other used car dealer out there is in the same boat as me. That's where we get 95+% of our cars is from these auctions. Don't buy a car from a used car dealer. Try to find one from an individual. Preferably, if you could find one from an individual that you already know, like that's the best place for you to buy a car. Even if it's not exactly the car that you want, you're going to be much safer doing that. And really, I mean, and if you're going to buy a used car, either way, make sure you get it checked out by a mechanic before you buy it. But there's trouble when you're going into a dealership to buy a car if you don't know exactly what you're looking at, exactly what you're paying for, whether you're buying used or new. If you're going to new, then you can get hit by a lot of these fees that you might not even know you don't have to pay. So that's my little spiel for today. Don't buy a car from a car dealer.
And the other thing, Brandon, and this goes back to the beginning of this segment. Most people out there are payment conscious. They're payment buyers. That's all they're concerned with. And as a car buyer, you should be concerned about the price of the vehicle that you're buying and find a vehicle that fits into your budget price-wise before you start concerning yourself about the payment. And how do you do that? Well, go to your bank, go to your local credit union, say, hey, I'm thinking about buying a car. Here's how much money I make. Here are my bills. How much can I afford? How much would you be willing to lend me? And that would keep me at a $500 a month payment. So you suddenly now know how much car you can look at if you're payment conscious, but always work the out the door price first. Always work the discount and the total amount that the vehicle's going to cost, including all fees. Then you can start talking about payment. And if you get pre-approved, you have an idea as to what the interest rate should be and as to what your payment should be.
So I want to let's circle back a little bit to the FTC, because I have a question for you. Because I know what my opinion is on this, but I want to hear yours. Do you feel like, seems like the FTC is trying to push back harder on these dealers? Do you have any faith that the FTC is going to be able to change anything dramatically as far as how business is done?
Yes and no. The yes is that the FTC is determined to want to try and do something. The no is it all depends on the outcome of the court case in Texas that the Texas Automobile Dealers Association brought against the FTC in regards to the FTC's cars ruling guidelines that they want to start enforcing. I think any time the FTC calls out a dealership, calls out a dealership group. It sheds light on the subject and reminds people about it again. And so Asbury, being a deep-pocketed, publicly traded company, has chosen to fight it rather than settle. Okay, but we're still shining a light on it. There could be other dealer groups out there that are going, we could be next. We don't want to be next. We don't want to give them a reason to come in here and then make claims against us. So my hope is that by what the FTC is doing, that they're scaring enough other dealers that they're going to clean up their act to a certain degree so that they won't be the next dealer group cited.
So I love that they're picking on a lot of these big dealerships, and I mean, it's just at the end of the day, it's going to be a slap on the wrist for these huge companies, right? But I like that they're at least making examples of some of these dealerships, because there's small dealerships. I know there's a small franchise dealership that I know close to me. They only have 2 stores, so they can't really handle one of these massive fees, I would assume. But with saying all that, I like the direction that they're trying to go. I have almost zero faith that the FTC is going to be able to do anything. And if they are able to change some rules where dealerships have to follow, the dealerships are going to find another loophole. They're going to find some other fee that they are able to charge, where all that margin is just going to be rotated from nitrogen filled tires over to whatever product they say, well, there's benefit to this, when there's absolutely no benefit to it at all. So that's my take on it.
Can I ask you a question now? Mm-hmm. You know, yesterday during the show, we were talking about wholesale values of cars and how the wholesale values of cars went up like 1.2% in the month of August, but that was primarily due to younger cars, 3-4-year-old cars with lower miles. And I said the one area where we continue to see prices drop is on the crappier 12 to 16-year-old cars. And I'm going to say this as nicely as I can. That's your market. I mean, that's what you deal with. Okay. And so is that so? Are we seeing the prices of those type of vehicles dropping to any degree at all?
So what I've seen, I mean, I'm in a small segment in North Carolina. We travel, I mean, within an hour of Charlotte to go to all of our auctions. So take this with a grain of salt. This is what I'm seeing, but we're seeing that dealers are not, like, they're not buying the cars that they were buying 6 months, 12 months ago. And the cars that they were buying in that range that I buy, they're not willing to pay up. So I've got it's like a 2007, 2008 Camry sitting out there right now, and we can sell it for $3,500. And a car like that 12 months ago would have been at the auction $4,000. So that means, like, we were able to buy it for like right around $2,500 and sell it for $3,500. We make $1,000. But so that price from what we used to be able to buy at auction, I mean, it's dropped by almost, I mean, it's 40-50%. Some of these cars have dropped in value. And I think it's more of an element, not that necessarily, I mean, prices are dropping. I don't think it's an element of dealers recognizing that prices are dropping, so they're recalibrating what they're paying for these cars. I think a lot of these dealers they can't buy any more cars because they're still trying to hit home runs on every single car. Yeah. And on that 2007, 2008 Camry, they know that if they pay $2,500 for it now, even though they were able to sell that car for $6,000, $7,000 12 months ago, they're only getting $5,000 out of it. And in a lot of cases, when they have to go and work on these cheaper cars like what we buy, it's almost not worth it to a lot of these dealers to spend that time. Now, I have a mechanic on staff, so we're able to take on some of these kind of things. Talking about my crappy cheap cars, though, I will tell you something. Tell you a story from a while ago. I bought my aunt. It has to be 6 years. This is before my son was born, so it might be 7 years now. That I bought her a $300 1998 Toyota Camry. It had like 250,000 miles on it or whatever whenever I sold it to her. She's drove that thing every day since then and hadn't had to do a thing to it. So yes, there are cheap cars, and yes, they are going to have more issues, But if you can go and you can sift through all the crap, if like me, we can work on stuff here at our shop, we can actually fix things, then you can absolutely go find a car that can be reliable and you can pay cash for it. And guess what? If it lasts 3-4 months and you paid $1,500, $2,000 for it, after that 3-4 months, you're making money.
I have one other question for you, if I may.
Go.
And I love that story about your aunt, by the way. Of course, you forgot to tell everybody she drives like a mile a day, but that's besides the point. No, I'm kidding. Have you noticed the quality of the crappier cars getting worse and worse, or is it about what it's always been? Because my contention is that those cars are getting worse in condition.
So what I'll say for the cars that I buy, the quality is getting better because the prices are coming down. So stuff, no. So I'm answering this question two different ways. Stuff that I'm buying is getting better because the range of what we're able to buy, we're inheriting a bigger slice of the actual cars that are available because prices are coming down. Now, with saying that though, over the last 3 years, quality overall has gone way down because people who are trading their cars, for the most part, they're only trading them in because they have to. They don't want to sign up for this new $750 a month payment. So overall, yes, quality has come down, but because prices have come down so significantly over the last 6 months, we're able to be more picky. So our cars that have been on our lot have gotten better because prices have just come down, and that is an element of that, and not necessarily that the overall quality of the market of cars has gotten better.
Gotcha. Well, I appreciate the insights there. I hate to break it to you, but we've crushed over a half hour already, and
Just like that.
Yeah, I mean, go figure. And we didn't even get to one of our other stories of the day. So FTC has teeth right now. Yay, Brand. Well, okay.
We're on TV, so it probably doesn't help to whisper it to yourself while you're reading it. We'll share it with everybody. Let's see here. Yeah. The FTC has real teeth right now. Yay, Brandon. This is from Fly Chopper Fly, and I think they want you to dance.
Well, that's not a super sticker, but I would dance anywho just for him. And well, I do have to get my exercise in today, so there you have it.
All right, we'll wrap it up, end it, and I'll hit the button.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. We'll be back here tomorrow for CarEdge Live. Well, with me and Zach tomorrow, who's in New York. That boy just travels. But thank you for being here with us today. And we look forward to seeing you back here again tomorrow. Thanks, Brandon. Thanks for filling in.
All right. Thanks, you guys.